Good evening, everyone. We request everyone to turn on their cameras and keep their mics muted. If you have any query, kindly use the chat box and our team would get back to you.
Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting shortly.
The theme of eWeek this year is Industry 4.0, entrepreneurship and structural changes in the new digital landscape. We hope you're as excited for day 3 as we are.
We are quite excited hosting the event for you. Let's enjoy the evening, inspiring stories from well renowned guests.
Let us give you a recap at what has happened till now in our week-long event that eWeek is. So of on 2nd of November, we had the inauguration, which was the day 1. On the second day, which was 3rd of November, we had the panel discussion. On the third day, that is today, we will be having the startup meet. On the fourth day, that would be on 5th November, we will be having the design thinking workshop. On 5th day, we would have the national level B plan competition. And you guys won't guess it, but let me tell you, the prize for that is 50,000 rupees. On the 7th day, we have the inter-club competition. And lastly, on the last day, we have the prize distribution ceremony. We hope you are excited for it. It's not about ideas, it's about making ideas happen. With this thought, I, Diksha Bansal,
And I, Ankita Biswal,
on behalf of Maçon, the official entrepreneurship cell of IBS Hyderabad, extend a warm welcome to everyone to day 3 of this week full of excitement and zeal.
we at Maçon provide a platform for all those who want to create their own paths and leave behind the trails of success. We organize guest lectures, business plan showcase, incube sessions, hackathon, and our flagship event, the e-week. To sum up in three words, Maçon is all about innovation, passion, and commitment.
We present before you our most awaited event of the year, eWeek, the flagship event of Maison on the theme Industry 4.0, Entrepreneurship and Structural Changes in the New Digital Landscape. Celebrating the spirit of entrepreneurship, eWeek is a week-long celebration of innovators, job creators, and aspiring minds gathered to bring ideas to life and expand human welfare. EV fosters an environment wherein aspiring and existing entrepreneurs can share their insights, skills, resources, and network at a national level. The objective of EV is to stimulate young minds to turn their ideas into successful businesses. Guest lectures by eminent entrepreneurs are conducted to inspire, instill confidence, and provide guidance to excel in the competitive ecosystem. I hope your enthusiasm is even higher than what it was in the beginning, and you all are enjoying the event as much as we are enjoying hosting it for you. But if you are feeling a bit low, we have a catch for you. we bring to you the Startup Meet, a session of how entrepreneurs went on to the journey to become what they are today. Before we start, we would request everyone to turn on the cameras and keep their mics muted.
Everyone is requested to please turn on your cameras and keep your mic on mute. Thank you, everyone. To make our evening more inspiring, more interesting, and more insightful, we have with us Mr. Arpit Arora. Mr. Arora is India's leading personal finance expert and wealth specialist and is currently the founder of Ask the Wise Guy.
Next, we have with us Mr. Priyadeep Sinha. Mr. Sinha is a founder and former CEO of Kidovatives and Vice President of Game and Entrepreneurship Vanges and an alma mater of Manipal Institute of Technology.
Again, we have with us Ms. Madhvi Shankar. She is the Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 United Nations Youth Speaker, TEDx Speaker, Government of IN and UN, and Top 30 Women Transforming India. We welcome you all. Let's call upon our first guest, Ms. Madhvi Shankar. Ms. Madhvi Shankar is a Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 United Nations Youth Speaker, TEDx Speaker, Government of IN and UN, Top 30 Women Transforming India. She is the co-founder and CEO of Space Basic Incorporation. She is an entrepreneur, technology enthusiast with keen interest in public affairs and international relations, passionate about building and engineering consumer-driven products across the scale. She is contributing towards global women employment and equal opportunities. We are graced to have your presence, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm really happy, to be here and share my journey with aspiring entrepreneurs and upcoming business leaders.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you, but you aren't audible. If you could speak a bit louder, please.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Oh, ma'am,
Yes,
still
ma'am.
you aren't that loud. Still you aren't that loud. The voice is a bit slow.
Give me a sec.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me reconnect.
There seems to be a technical error at the guest side. She would be joining us soon.
Hi, can you hear me any better?
Yes, ma'am, it's perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me today, and it's a pleasure being here, and I'm really excited to share my story. And also, I hope that it will inspire, and I hope you get some learnings out of my journey. So a little bit about myself. Thank you for the very kind introduction, but I'm an engineering student, born and brought up in Bangalore, India, and I pursued my engineering. So when I did my engineering back in 2008, we had only two options: so either be a doctor or be an engineer. And I guess I was not as smart to be a doctor, so I had to choose engineering. And when I did I did choose engineering. I enrolled into a university here in Bangalore. For me, engineering was more of a checklist than it was really, something that I was very passionate about. So I sat through 4 years of computer science engineering. It was all right. I think my college experience, if I had to sum it up, it was more of it was more outside learning than it was classroom education. And I think that's what kind of also taught me what I was good at, what I was not good at, what I liked, and what I didn't like so much. So after engineering, in the fourth year, we're all gearing up for placements, and for me, I didn't necessarily go through a lot of that kind of churn for placements because I didn't have great grades. And I don't know even today if grades are still a key factor for placements, but it was the only factor at least 10 years ago. And I mean, I didn't have the scores to sit for placements. And so my immediate next option was, all right, I'm going to go overseas to do my master's. So I picked Australia, and this time I wanted to study something that I was interested in. So I did a little bit of research, and I found a course that was engineering management as well as MBA. So I thought that was a good mix, with my background and everything. So I said, hey, let's do this. So soon after engineering, packed my bags, moved to Australia. And I think, the pivotal point in my life was my overseas student experience that I had in Sydney, Australia. And I say that because, in India, we're brought up, especially women, I think men too, but mostly women, we're brought up with a very kind of, sheltered and very kind of prescribed path of how to do things. Risks are usually not taken. We Indians generally are a risk averse, but for women mostly, it's just doing something unusual was a bit of a red flag in a way, you can say. But what I got to discover and experience in Australia was I was away from the cultural shadow. I was a young student trying to figure out my way, trying to figure out what I want to do. And all my decisions were really based on my own thinking. Not what my dad says, not what about society, not about, what my neighbor's kid did, none of that, right? It was just predominantly about what I want, what can I do, and let's see what options I have. And I think that capability to kind of practice independent thinking really allowed me to make good decisions as well as have experiences, both good and bad, because that's what you learn from. So I think I grew individually about my thoughts, who am I, what am I good at, what I need to learn, and things like that. And I figured out, all right, you know what? I'm going to start working I'm going to do an internship for an early stage startup. So guys, back then, startup was not a buzzword. So we used to call it a small company, right? So it was like 3 people, and I was the second employee. So there were 3 founders. I was the second employee they hired. And for me, what I was very certain about is if I'm going to do a job, right? If I'm going to spend 20 hours every week trying to do a job, internship, job, whatever, it has to be something that is of value add. It has to be something that I can add to my resume. It was as simple as that. So, I mean, some of you who are aspiring to go overseas after this might think that, there are a lot of other kind of jobs that I'll give you an example. For me, my roommate had a job as a barista. And me working in a nice office with, with Mac computers, I was probably earning 1/4 of what she was making as a barista. But it didn't matter because that's where I discovered, startups. That's where I discovered what working for a startup environment really means. And it gave me the ability to figure out what I liked. So let's say I was good at communicating. I was not that great at, let's say, software testing. I got to wear different hats because when you join a very early stage company, you have that ability to play different roles. You have that ability to really figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and what are perhaps some of the skills you might want to incorporate in your learning. And that kind of discovery early on in your career is something that I would personally recommend to everybody, because I feel like anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, aspiring to be an entrepreneur, that learning, you just cannot kind of add a dollar amount to it. And it's absolute. And that's where my love for startups really began. And, when we started churning, so we went from a 5-people team to a 100+ people team. We were branched in South Asia, Philippines. We were in India, Singapore, Australia. So in a span of 4 years, from an intern, I did door-to-door sales. I did, tech support. I did testing. Then I did project management. And in 4 years, I made product manager for the Asia Pacific region. And that was predominantly because I was there from the start. I understood the functionings and the working of the product and the organization. So growth in a startup is brilliant because you get to experience and it's noticed as well. So I think kind of getting your hands dirty and doing a little bit of like groundwork is very important, either when you're starting a company or starting your career. It doesn't matter. So I think that was my exposure to entrepreneurship. That was my exposure to a culture or a startup culture per se. And having worked there for about 4.5 years, after going from working 15, 20 hours, 15, 16 hours a day to suddenly having 2 hours of work and just delegating was fun initially, but then it kind of got boring because I'm like, okay, what do I do with all this extra time I didn't have, over the last 2, 3 years? So by then, I kind of understood and I kind of had this, feeling in me that I was ready to start a company of my own. I didn't know what, I didn't know how, I didn't know what does it even take if you have to do it from a founder's perspective. But I just knew I wanted to start a company. And I was on a trip to the US in 2016, and I was introduced to this successful woman entrepreneur based out of San Francisco. So I wrote to her a couple of times, finally got a meeting with her because I really wanted to understand, even she's from Bangalore. She went from a traditional family. She, kind of broke the ceilings and broke the kind of predefined notions to become successful. And for me, that was a star in my eyes. I had to meet her. So I met with her, spoke to her, and she was like, so I had a couple of, I was very passionate about the education space. I wanted to do something in education because as a student, having studied in India and having experience overseas, I really wanted students in India to kind of also experience that because it was just not classroom, it was just not textbook. It was more than that. So she said, okay, you know what? I'll do this with you. And I was like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, we'll do it for the Indian ecosystem. And I said, great, let's do it for India. And the next 6 days, I was supposed to be there for sightseeing, didn't see anything at all, just ended up working with her on a business plan, for 6 consecutive days. And finally went back to Australia, packed my bags, and just moved to India, back in Bangalore, ready to start from scratch. My parents were very surprised that that happened. All parents are prepared for their kids to go overseas and have great jobs. And I was here kind of coming back and starting from scratch, living with them again. And, so they were pretty surprised that I did that. But, like when I think about it today, there's no logical reason that would support that. Because it could have been like, it's not going to work, it's going to fail, but you don't know until you don't try. And it's as simple as that. And I had this strong gut feeling. And if I didn't give it a shot, I would have probably had that regret all my life. So I had to try it out. So another thing that I would like, one of my learnings was also to kind of trust your gut, because sometimes there's not enough data validation points for you to always kind of logically analyze and kind of, realize through that process. So sometimes when you have a really strong gut feeling, and most of the times in early stage companies, when you're just starting off, most of the decisions that you're making is based on gut. And I don't think we say that enough here in India, but I think trusting your gut is very important because I think most of the times that ends up to be right. So did that, and I was back in Bangalore, ready to start, and I'm still thinking, what problem am I going to solve? I'm here now. What are we going to do? So after that, what I focused heavily on was due diligence. So I would have visited about 100 colleges, schools, met with a lot of people within universities and schools, parents, students, teachers, professors, all of that. And I kind of stumbled into student housing. So then I went and met with somebody in a hostel in one of the universities. And then we figured out that the way hostels are managed in a top university to all the way to a government university is almost the same. It's manual, it's redundant, it's not fun and exciting for the student at all, right? So we saw that there was a problem there, and we're like, okay, fine, we're going to solve this with technology. So built a MVP, a minimum, viable version of the product. Got 3 pilot customers, tested the product out, heavily built it based on their feedback. And I think that was very crucial because we didn't go all out to build a very expensive product. We built a very small version, and we built on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. So that's how we so I say validate, build, validate, and that's the cycle even today we follow. And that's so important because if you're, I started with all my savings that I had from Australia, I put that into starting Space Basic. So we were cash conscious. We were very very conscious about our spendings, where it's going. And that's why for me, the first important thing was, is this problem big enough that my customers will pay for it? Because if you're not able to generate cash, then it's less of a company, more of a hobby, and that's what my mentor says. So we had to validate that, and the 3 pilot customers we launched the product in August of 2017, and the 3 pilot customers are still our paying customers today. And in the span of the last 3 years, we have grown to about 70 university schools, colleges across 5-6 cities here in India. We are still a very small team. We're still a team of about 10 people. And and that's another important thing is team. Like, you don't have to have a massive team to grow. You can optimize in your capacity by finding the right people. And a lot of my learnings was around finding a good team. Made quite a few mistakes. Well, we learn from them, and you reiterate and you keep moving forward. And finally, some of the learnings, if I had to sum up my entire kind of journey as entrepreneurs, we have great days, we have more not so great days, and some days you're just firefighting. I remember when I was on Forbes, one of my on the day I was on the Forbes Asia results came out. I had a customer call, and he was very upset because something wasn't working. So for the world, we're on Forbes, but I was on call for 6 hours trying to figure out how are we going to make this work. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that happens. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go through. But you know what? It's the passion that drives it. It's not 1 in 10 startups fail, and it's not about the money. Till today, we're not funded. But we will eventually, but we're still bootstrapped and we're profitable. That says you don't necessarily need some companies need upfront funding, some don't. But I believe that if you're able to release a smaller version of the application and get that validated, that will tell you a lot about your product market fit, about your customers, and about the market you're entering. And so if I had to really sum up, I would say trust your gut. Practice thinking independently about what you want. What is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you aspire to be, right? So I would say if I was told these things back in the day, probably I don't know, I might have been in a better place. But the thing is, I'm happy to kind of say that to students and aspiring entrepreneurs, because that is so important, especially in culturally kind of exuberant countries like India. And I would say, you need to find a real problem. When I say real problem, do your due diligence. You have to go out, talk to your potential customers. You have to ask them what's the pain point. I remember sitting and spending almost, every day in the hostel from like 9 to, evening 6, 7, just sitting there and watching them onto how they do things. And that kind of really gave us a lot of perspective about how things really work. And it was very archaic. So you're like, oh my God, this can be solved with technology. It's as simple as that. But you only figure that out when you do that due diligence and that process. And I would say, listen to your customers, build an MVP instead of like a full-fledged product, and get help. Getting help is a strategy by itself. You don't know everything. You don't necessarily, you might think you're right, but you could be wrong. So get help. right? And for me, my two greatest takeaways from this entire journey that I've had is get a mentor who's been there, done that, who can identify potential pitfalls, who can identify the things we're doing right, wrong, reiterate, kind of pivot, etc. So it's very, very, very important to find a mentor very early, even better, right? And finally, don't give up. I mean, grit is everything. You do it, maybe all you need to do is be right once. So if that takes 100 attempts, might as well be. So just don't give up. I mean, there's no secret sauce, and the only thing is you do it again and again and again until you get it right. So yeah, that's my experience and my 2 cents with building Space Basic.
Thank you so much for inspiring words, ma'am. This reminds me of a quote: "All our dream comes true if we have the courage to pursue them." Ma'am, we have some questions for you in the chat box. Do you want me to read them out?
Sure, yeah.
So the first question is, what difference do you find in the startup ecosystem in India when compared to abroad? And which education system in India or abroad supports in building entrepreneurship skills?
Well, I think startups. Okay, so India is still developing the startup ecosystem, and that's what's great about it. So in like, let's say America or in Australia, it's more well defined, and they've kind of put it together. But here, I mean, it's a very vibrant kind of startup ecosystem that's still kind of churning and trying to find its momentum. But right now is a great time to be in the Indian startup ecosystem. And sorry, what was the second question?
Which education system in India or abroad supports in building entrepreneurship skills?
So I think, the key difference between education in India and education overseas is the practical experience. So in India, it's more textbook education. It's more I honestly don't remember what I studied from engineering. I don't know if I've ever utilized it as well. Sometimes make me wonder, what did I do 4 years? I mean, where did it go? Could have I done something else? So I think it has to be a blend of both. For me, what really helped me accelerate in my career in the company that I first worked for is because I was studying MBA. I was studying managing, I was studying masters in engineering management. I was directly able to apply that to my day-to-day work. So it kind of made more sense to me. And I like that structure because you're working and you're studying, so that it's very flexible. But in India, we're a little more kind of stern about textbook education. So I would say a blend. I mean, I do see now before we had projects for the 4th year. Now, students have to do internships, which is great. It's a good change. So I think more of that, more incorporating of practical kind of experience and exposure will definitely help.
There's one more question. So what criteria did you consider before hiring your initial employees?
Initially you just want somebody to, like, I'm a first-time entrepreneur. I go by what, people have said, or people say what's going to work, but a template doesn't necessarily work. So, I think today, when you ask me today, what I don't look for marks at all. You're going to say, oh, I'm an engineer. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. So I don't look at marks. I more look at what have they done in the past. If they've done something where they've actually gone above and beyond in a particular job that they were a part of, or if they've done something, I ask them, okay, fine, you have 10 years of experience, but what have you achieved? What are some of the key milestones you've achieved? So I go by practical experience only because I know that's what is going to help with running Space Basic or any other organization, because skills can be taught. Attitude and passion cannot be taught. It has to be instilled. And that's the two main things I look for when I hire today.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Next we have with us Mr. Priyadeep Sinha. Mr. Sinha started his entrepreneurial journey as the founder and CEO of Kidovatives, also called as GAN Labs, as a final year engineering student at Manipal University in 2011, which enabled over 140,000 plus students across 22 states in India with 21st century skills over 8 years. He is currently a vice president at Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, where he leads efforts in Punjab, Meghalaya, and Uttarakhand, as well as other projects such as mentoring and social security for mass entrepreneurs. He has previously been a visiting scholar at Strathclyde University in Glasgow, UK. He is a TEDx speaker and regularly speaks about startups, education, and entrepreneurship at different forums across India, US, and Brazil. He also supports, advises, and mentors startups and small businesses across India. We welcome you, sir.
Hi, Pratisha. Thank you so much. Lovely to be here. I hope I'm audible and all of you can hear me properly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So, thank you so much for having me here. Really cool, group of folks. I see there are 90 people here. And while Madhuri was speaking and she said, that 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs fail. I guess I'm one of those guys. I did sort of run my startup for about a little more than 8 years. But ultimately I couldn't make it work. And I thought I'll tell you that story. And then what it ultimately led to, like sort of me doing in life after that, right? So I think, so essentially for me, entrepreneurship was not a career option. It was actually a way of life. Very interestingly, so essentially, you look at problems around you all the time, right? You see problems. So given that we live in society and we live with other people around us, problems are consistent. And it was something that I latched on to quite early in life. I was pretty observant. I grew up an absolute introvert, so my early childhood was spent being alone. And I think, that led me to a point where I was sitting in class. I think this was around grade 9. And then I realized that the way in which learning happens, right, or was happening to me was not the way I wanted it, right? It wasn't optimized, it wasn't conducive, it wasn't built for me. It wasn't built for somebody like me. And I saw that there were a lot of other people like me in that classroom. In fact, if now that I know of data in any given classroom, about 60 to 70% people are not like there. They're not present there. Physically they're present, but they're not there really. So I think that got me started to think about, hey, how do you make learning, digestible? How do you make learning something that people want to do? And this sort of stayed with me. I went to Manipal to do my engineering only because that was the best option I got. I guess no lying about that. I wasn't so 11th and 12th I completely dropped out of studies. I did not care much about things, which ultimately I landed in Manipal to do my engineering. And that gave me a lot of time. And while I was in Manipal, I saw there were a lot of business plan competitions. I started participating in those, right? And usually the goal for me initially was to win, get some money, live a lavish life. But it eventually turned to entrepreneurship, right? And I remember, when this is our 6th semester when placements start, and I thought to myself, I've always been keen to doing something in education, right? And I understand a little bit about entrepreneurship. I thought to myself, if I don't take the plunge now, I guess I'll regret it when I'm like 30 years old, which is now, right, for me. And I just dropped out of the placement process. I let the college know that I'm not going to be sitting for placements. I started my company earlier in my 8th semester. And that's where my entrepreneurial journey started. So what did we do? We actually tried to make learning fun. And that was the goal of the organization, right? In terms of, so at Kilovators, there was one question we constantly asked ourselves. If there was one thing you could help people learn, what would that one thing be, right? And I think that was a question we were constantly grappling with. And for me, that skill was problem solving. Again, you see problems around you all the time. And the ability to solve it is an exceptional skill that humans can have, right? Most of the times we struggle in life because we can't solve our own problems, let alone somebody else's, right? So I think that became the basis with which we ran Kilovators. What we did is teach creativity and critical thinking to young children, people who are in the age group of 8 to 15. And there was reason. So what creativity does is lets you take any problem statement and sort of, diverge, like find as many solutions as possible. What critical thinking does is sort of allows you to optimize based on, based on what resources you have, time, etc., and then choose the best option for you, right? So be it what to have for dinner, up to how to take humans to Mars, you can solve using the same framework and principles, right? And that's what we were trying to teach young people. It was a very interesting journey for me because, as I said, being an introvert, imagine trying to sell to schools, right? I was 21 years old then, and start trying to stand in front of a school gate, trying to get an entry there because nobody knows you. I remember my first meeting with a school principal, and his sort of so this was a father in a Mangalore-based school since we started from Manipal itself, and the principal told me that, you know what, I have 27 years of experience in education. You are younger than that, right? What will you tell me about learning? And I guess I took that a little bit seriously, and I thought to myself, he's right. If I can't convince him that what value do we add as a business, then no one's going to take us seriously. And I told him that, so you may know more about education, but I guess we bring in a perspective that you will never have, right? Which is of so I have been a student more recently than you've been. So that was my answer to him. Of course, he never took the product. He threw me out of the school, but it was a good lesson, And I think over time I did more and more of this, right? So I remember picking up my bag in Bangalore, just trying to land up at schools, cold calling, and between our sort of the second and third year of business, I cold called almost 700 schools, sold to only 12. But learned a lot of lessons in life. I think entrepreneurship teaches you humility like nothing else in life, right? The ability to, just do things and realize what reality is. I think that is where entrepreneurship played a big role in my life. Of course, over time, we got better at selling to schools. We got better at understanding what schools want. We got better at what price point things work at, right? It became a science for us as a business, which is why, in our final year, 8th year of business, we had, around 464 schools, to be exact, who we sold our programs to. We had about, I think around 88,000 students in the final year, it was a massive burgeoning operation, right? And we had a 12-member team. So you can also imagine the kind of efficiency we were running with. But I think it was, again, as Madhavi said, a lot of businesses which require money to keep running. And this was one of those businesses, right? So essentially, to sell to somebody, you have to first educate them and then sell to them. So the cost of education plus the cost of selling was not being sort of utilized by the kind of revenue that you were getting from the business, right? So I thought hard and long for about a few months, and then realized that the only way this business could keep running is if I were sort of Bill Gates or one of those rich guys who could just keep running it in perpetuity. But I wasn't, right? I was this young entrepreneur with a small amount of venture capital raised, and it was getting hard to run the business, and which is why we took the call at the end of the 8th year to shut it down. I also, and one of the very interesting things happened at that point of time was our schools asked us not to shut down, and they were willing to relook at the pricing, etc. They were, our team said, we don't mind foregoing a salary for like 6 months, but let's give it another shot. And I think that was my big takeaway from the entrepreneurial journey. As long as no matter what you do, as long as you don't stop being human, you don't stop caring about your customers, you don't and you don't stop caring about your team, you don't stop caring about your investors, you will be liked for what you do, right? And I think for me, that journey symbolizes that particular aspect of running a business. Of course, learnings, like the number of lessons I learned in life were galore. I barely made any money, so imagine being an entrepreneur for 8 years, running a sort of a really tight operation. I saw my friends, buying houses and buying cars and getting married. And I saw myself just struggling with life. I guess that was the big difference. But I think the joy of doing something for 140,000 young children, I think that's immense, right? And if I were to look at the value, the operation does not exist anymore. The business is dead. But there were a number of young people who went through education through our system, right? And a lot of our first few students are now, like some of them are in the master's program, some of them are studying in IITs, and some of them are sort of getting to their first jobs. And when I look at these people, right, I feel really proud because they stood out, right? And I think that's what we did as a business, right? We helped young people stand out. And I think you can't take that away. And these people will inspire a new set of people, and the impact of Kidovators will never stop. So I think that's where I was quite happy. I know, a lot of people thought that when you shut your business down, you're almost sobbing and crying and being too worried. But I got my opportunity. Running something for 8 years is not easy, and it's not that everybody gets that opportunity. So I think from that point of view, I was really happy. And the second stage, and I think this is what my next message to all of you is that, so when Kidovators shut down, you won't believe the number of opportunities I had in life. I mean, the world was sort of my oyster. I could do whatever I want. People always cared about the kind of skills I carried with me, right? So what I decided was I won't stay in the education sector because I know enough about it, and I want to learn something new. I want to challenge myself again, which is why I joined this fantastic organization called Game. It was pre-strategy. It was pretty in its early stages, and Game was looking to help SMBs in India grow, right? And that's with an ambitious goal of helping 10 million SMBs get on a growth path, be better job creators. And I thought that's a great problem statement, right? Let me work on with Game to solve it. And I'm currently building an accelerator program for small and micro businesses. So our first pilot is in Ludhiana, which is a place I've never been to so far. But that's what I'm building for. And if this works out, this is a model that can be taken to probably 300 districts of the country. And I think that's what excites me, right? So I think that's the biggest lesson, with entrepreneurship. If you plunge into entrepreneurship, the only sort of takeaways you never lose. You will never lose. You always win. Like when you look at sort of the long-term aspects of entrepreneurship, you will always win in life. So I think that's sort of the big takeaway that I got. And I remember thinking this when I was starting out. When I was in 2010 in October, when I was sitting on my own trying to think if this is the right step in life, and my mind told me to just go with it, and I think I did the right thing. Of course, I had a few things to help me. I won't lie about it. I had parents who have pretty much left me to be on my own. None of my life decisions were taken by my parents since I was like 8 or 9 years old. Right, I've always taken my own. I think that taught me to be an independent human being. And this is also what we preached at Innovators. We told parents to stop, deciding for your children. You don't have any right. And in fact, if you look at my TEDx talk, that's also what it talks about, right? Leave the kids alone. That's what it is. So I would say that, if any one of you is looking at entrepreneurship as an option in life, you should consider it seriously. And the sooner the better, right? As you get older in life, your liabilities just keep on increasing, right? I mean, it just keeps on piling up, and you not a lot of us can be Colonel Sanders, right? That you have the courage to start in your 60s. But I would say that if you have the drive, if you think you can do something, go for it. And I agree with everything Madhvi said. Your mentors are super important. I got phenomenal mentors right on day one of my journey, and they're stuck with me even today. Like even if the business does not exist, they are in my lives. My investors who lost money because of me are still in my life. They're sort of guiding me, and so I got a lot of help around me, right? And I think that's what also helped me do the right things. And so here's my offer to you: if you're looking to start up, if you really want to do something entrepreneurial in your life, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always very happy to talk to folks, help out wherever I can. I've been doing it, right? And that's my way of paying forward, because there are people who did things for me when they had no obligation to do so, right? So I think that's sort of my way of paying it forward. So yeah, look forward to seeing some of you as entrepreneurs, and thank you so much for having me here today. Was it in time? Was I on time?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. It was quite inspiring. So I have a question for you in the chat box.
Oh, sure.
Should I read it for you?
Yes, please.
Connecting with your customers helps the startup. But in the current scenario, when the customer would avoid one-to-one conversation, what would you advise in the current time period?
Interesting, very interesting question. So I think, so in our business, we had about 464 schools. And out of these, there were only about 40 to 45 schools who we met in person. And the rest of them bought our programs without sort of meeting us ever, right? So I guess that's from our journey. I would say that, with times people change. The way of doing business also changes. Your email always works. So for us, what was important was finding the right stakeholder, writing to them. So for example, writing to somebody like Nirja Birla, who is Kumar Mangalam Birla's wife, and runs the Birla school in Tardeo, was our way to get to that school, right? So I think, given that you can't meet people in person, you can't meet customers in person, figure out every other way of doing so, right? You have email, you have social media, you have LinkedIn, which works phenomenally well, right? And I think, I think it also it's much easier today to sell to people than it was when I started out. I mean, none of these tools were really utilized in India at that point of time, right? So I think I would say figure out, that's what being entrepreneurial means.
Thank you, sir. So we have one more question.
Yes, please.
At which stage of startup implementation should we go for product launch in order to acquire first 1,000 customers?
Well, I think even if you have a really shitty product, just go out with it. The faster you go to market with what you have, right? The faster it allows you to test it with real customers, get the real feedback, sort of bring it back in the loop into the business, and keep doing it on a cyclic basis. Because I've seen time and again, a lot of entrepreneurs are waiting for that perfect product to be built, right? There's nothing called as a perfect product. Nothing can be perfect in the world, right? I mean, you have to keep on running those cycles, and the faster the cycles, the better it is for your business. So I think it's super important to sort of keeping the cycles really short. In fact, if you read about Agile, Agile allows you to sort of build something and test it in the real market in 90 days. I think that's a great framework to sort of building products. I think we followed something very similar to that.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I'm done with my questions, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir. We were graced with your presence.
My pleasure, absolutely. Thank you so much, and have a good day, guys. Have a fantastic, event, and look forward to seeing some of you as entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thanks. So, to make our event more insightful, more exciting, we have Mr. Arpit Arora. Mr. Arora is India's leading personal finance expert and wealth specialist, and is currently the founder of Ask the Wise Guy. He is an alma mater of London School of Commerce. He is a SAPI registered research analyst and has a total experience of 13 years in UK and in India. He has helped over 200 entrepreneurs like Rati Sheets, Lakshita Fashion, Sam India Built Well, etc. to become financially independent by having their investments create revenue in monthly passive incomes. He is also the co-founder and marketing head at Tradelines. He was previously a financial sales team leader at GCC Limited for more than 3 years, and then a financial research analyst at the Royal Bank of Scotland for a year. We welcome you, sir.
Sir, you are on mute.
I hope I'm audible and visible now.
Yes, sir, perfectly.
Okay, right. So let me just, as we go along, first I would like to introduce myself. You know my name, Arpit Arora. I'm India's leading personal finance expert and passive income coach. Today, I run 2 startups who both have created by my own self over the last 7 years. And most amazingly, I have the opportunity to actually live my mission in life, which is to help more than 1 million people in India to live a life where money is not a worry. They're able to follow their passion and live within inner peace and joy. And that is exactly why I do what I do, why I'm here in front of you. So, but things weren't exactly how they are being portrayed to you. I was actually a very different person when I started out almost 15 years ago. To tell you a very funny story, I was a completely spoiled brat. So I did my schooling from APJ Noida. And at that time, my parents had actually had enough of me and they threw me to England. Yes, jokes apart, they did obviously send me for further studies. I did my graduation from the Roehampton University in England. And while in the first year itself, I had that sense of that word, as you would know, khuddari in myself. And I wanted to ensure that I did not take any more money from my parents. So while I was studying in Roehampton University, I was actually parallelly also working in Pizza Hut and Subway. Yes, I am telling you the truth. I actually used to clean tables, cut vegetables, and make sandwiches and do everything I could, not borrow money from my parents. Now, the reason why I did that was to ensure that I became self-dependent on myself, given I was away from my family. I was into a completely different country altogether, and I was alone there myself. So that thing was really the start of the one thing that I've carried with myself, which is hard work. Like, I certainly believe that this is the founding grain. If you really want to create anything in life, hard work is the very basics. Smart work does come, but without hard work, even smart work doesn't work. So that thing got instilled in me at the age of 18 itself. Now, I realized I was working very hard. I completed my graduation in 3 years. While I was at that age of 21 and I was looking for a corporate job, I actually took a very big challenging role. I started working in a company called GCC Limited. Now, this was a sales based role in finance. Now, in that company, they had 25 people in sales. I was the youngest and I was most intimidated because everyone there was flying high with big sales numbers. Guys, I'm going to tell you the reality. First 3 months, I was so bad at doing what I was doing. I literally had to push myself back to going to work the next following day. But I told myself I'm never going to quit. The quitting was not an option for me at any given point. Within those 3 months, I worked on myself, and using again the hard work that I had instilled myself at the age of 18, I was started doing well. In the next 3 months, I was noticeable in the company. In the next 3 months, I was in the top five in the company. In the next 3 months, I was the best person in the sales in the history of that company. The reason that I was able to get to that point was because of the pure sheer determination of achieving something that I had set for myself. Guys, within 1 year working in that company, using my determination, I became the youngest person in the management in sales within 1 year. Mind you, people had been in that company for 3 to 4 years. Yet, someone who was new to the country, new to the company, but had proven their worth by sheer determination and hard work, was able to secure a management position. I was the youngest person, one of the highest people paid in the management. I actually bought my first car, my BMW, using my own money without asking my parents. And all of this was going great. In fact, I was making a lot of money while I was in that company. Mind you, when you're 21 and you're making a lot of company, you're in a different country and you're living all by yourself, you actually do sometimes feel invincible. I was in that state. Now, I was taking my parents on international Euro trips every single year. I had bought my first car and life was going amazing. Money was flowing in like anything. That's when I thought, while I'm also having the experience of management, let me complete my MBA. That I did from the London School of Commerce. I did that in finance and marketing. In totality, I had spent 7 years working, living, working, studying in UK. I was just 3 years away, and this is a big lesson coming through. Just 3 years away from my permanent citizenship in England. People in India are willing to spend a lot of money to be in that position. Do you know what I did? I did the complete opposite. I did not even renew my visa for the extension that I had to take before applying for the PR. I came back to India, realizing that I need to do something even bigger in life. I was making a lot of money, but I believed that I was meant for something much more bigger than that. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have my own company, something I could not foresee that I was able to do in UK. This was the first realization I had in my life that it's not just hard work, you have to make sacrifices as well. And that was one of the biggest sacrifices I made. I still believe till this date, this is the biggest sacrifice I made because I left a country in which I had studied, I had worked, I had settled, and created a structure where I could build upon a lot. However, that still would not align with my big vision of having my own company. I came to India. Coming to India was a cultural shock. It was funny at the time. I used to be so angry at all the time because I was not able to understand my own country where I had spent 18 years. But now this country was a cultural shock. I was not able to adjust. I was not able to understand how things work here. It was very frustrating, to be honest. But again, I said, I need to look within myself and find that hard work, that passion that I'm working towards. I realized that I was inclined towards finance and marketing and research. So instead of taking a business or taking up a business venture, I wanted to first adapt into India. I started a role in Royal Bank of Scotland, working in the corporate team, who actually worked with all the RBS employees pan world. So I had a few of my clients were in Australia, some in America, some in Europe, and different parts of the world. All of these were RBS employees who I was helping to do their activities, being a financial analyst for them. Now, while I was working in RBS, I realized that there is a very big gap in the Indian market, which is another lesson I have for you. Always look for gaps. Any entrepreneur's job is to look for gaps and try to fill them with their business. That is what I was trying to do in RBS. Now, because I wanted to start my own business, I started looking for gaps in the Indian financial industry. I realized that in India, people do not even plan their finances. They depend on financial advisors, people who might not have their best interest in heart, people who want to only sell them financial products, were the people who the advice was taken from, which is why either half of the people did not even wanted to invest, or the other who were investing were not getting the right benefit out of it. Looking at this gap, I started my first business almost 7 years ago, which is a SEBI registered research analysis firm, which is going by the name of Trendlines. We have three partners there, and my childhood friend actually happens to be my founding partner in that as well. So things were great. We started off well. Within 1 year, I left RBS and I started Trendlines. Things were going great. Again, I started making a lot of money. Now, I realized that when that happens, when you start making a lot of money, you get a sense of fulfillment. However, there is still that gap which I had inside. The genuine reason why I wanted to do what I wanted to do was because I wanted to change the financial life of not just the wealthy people, but people pan India. And people pan India are not wealthy people. These are people who are struggling with money, people who are in loans, people who don't understand finance, people who really genuinely work too hard but are not able to live the life that they truly deserve. Now, these could be your parents, could be your uncles, could be your extended family. And one of them was my own father. I had actually seen him working so hard his entire life, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, barely being able, having the time to take us to holidays. It was all the same thing I saw within my own family that I wanted to do for the world. And that was the defining moment, what changed everything for me. So money was not the end goal for me anymore. I had made a lot of that. My end goal was now actually to become someone who becomes the catalyst of change, of financial management, of a person, of a family, and which is why I do what I do today. I help entrepreneurs, I help professionals, I help people nearing retirement to plan their money in such a way that they're able to create fixed monthly passive income. Now, this income is not dependent on their job, business, or profession. So now they're able to follow their passion, they're able to follow what they want to do, or they're not even dependent for income from their business, job, or profession. That is what I do. The reason for me to do that was the same reason my family, I could see that, my extended family, I could see that. I could literally see almost everyone in India following the same suit, running after money, working too hard, not living the life they truly deserve. And this is what propelled me to invest even more into myself. I had spent a lot of money in my education. In fact, back then, my parents put money into education. But this time, I made a promise to reinvest and learn from the best people in the world. Guys, I'm really happy to tell you that I've had the privilege to get trained by one of the biggest people in the world who are coaches who help on passive income. I'm sure you all have heard about Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I hope you all have. Now, I actually had the opportunity to learn from his right hand, whose name is Blair Singer. Now, he's one of the Rich Dad advisors who trained me in a program where I had to fly to Bangalore and spend 4 days with him and actually got trained on that aspect. Now, he's not the only one. I got trained by a trainer in England called Robert Riopel. Then, if you've heard about the biggest trainer in the world, whose name is Tony Robbins, I had the opportunity to get trained by him as well. I have actually spent a lot of money in the last 2 to 3 years in relearning a lot of things which most people actually overlook because they think to themselves that they have learned everything, they've done MBA or they've done even a PhD. Mind you guys, your real learning starts after you complete your formal education. Now, this education which I've recently gone through, and I'm sure you will get inspired into that as well, is the education which propels into getting you the kind of results that you can create in your professional life. And most amazingly, it also helps you in your personal life too. Now, by investing so much into myself, I started helping people on a one-on-one basis. Then I pushed myself and got onto a stage. I started addressing auditoriums. Now, all of this started propelling, became a snowball for me. and I started receiving awards and certificates. And only earlier this year, thankfully, before the corona actually hit us, I had the opportunity to get awarded by Philip Kotler. I believe you have read the books of Philip Kotler, or you know who he is. He is the father of modern marketing. I also had the privilege of actually reading his book while I was doing my master's and bachelor's. I got awarded as excellence as a financial coach by the Philip Kotler itself under the Philip Kotler Award ceremony. Now, all of this was going great, and I said, "No, this is exactly what I wanted to do." Now, how things have actually changed is that I have not only been able to impact people uh, because obviously lockdown has happened. I'm not only helping people on one or in groups. I have actually propelled and taken 10 times action by doing webinars every other Saturday. I work with thousands and hundreds of people on a weekly and monthly basis and inspire them sitting in my own home, in my own office, which I've created at home, yet having that comfort, still taking massive action on every single thing that I have made a vision for myself. Guys, the reason why I'm sharing all of this with so much intensity and passion is I truly believe that the reason, the purpose of my existence is actually to help people so that they do not have money as a worry in their life, so that they can follow their passion, because we all are born to follow our passion. We all have a purpose in life. We're not just here to make money. I've made loads of it. I've actually almost and being so thankful in life that I got exactly everything I wanted, and that at a very early age. And later I realized that once you get it, it's not really all that anymore. Once you buy a BMW, then you would want to buy a Jaguar, then you want to buy a Ferrari. Every time you do that, it really isn't, it doesn't only satisfies you for a very short time, and then you want to do something even bigger. But the moment I changed my distraction of money or materialistic things, and I got into the purpose of life to help millions of Indians to not worry about money by creating passive income, by being able to follow their passion, living with inner peace and joy. Once I got onto that journey, it was like a drug. It was something that gave me immense happiness at all times. And the more I did, I wanted to do more of it. And it gave me even more happiness. The reason, in fact, it's a funny story. I always had this quest to help students as well, because the things that I've learned now, had I, and I swear to God, had I received them when I was at your age, I right now would have actually, I can say for sure, would have been at the same stature of what Robert Kiyosaki has done pan world. Because all of these things I've learned in the last 2 to 3 years, and I've been able to get to that here. Imagine if that had happened 10 years ago. So the reason why I'm emphasizing everything that I'm telling you is, one, ensure that you work very hard to whatever you do. Second, have a bigger vision than yourself. The moment you have a bigger vision than yourself, the world conspires and ensures that you get what you want, because you're not asking for yourself, you're asking for the world. And three, and most importantly, ensure you follow your passion. Your passion is the one thing that will get you to thick and thin. Every single time you've heard my story, there have been so many times I've been disappointed, not got the results, cried, anguished, angered, and so many times I've never achieved what I really wanted to. But the one thing that got me going was my passion, my end result. I said, it does not matter. It really does not matter what I've achieved today. It matters where I'm going. My journey might not be a straight line. It might not be a upwards curve, but let it be a zigzag. I'm fine with the zig so that I can learn and zag back up. So that is the one thing that is most important. And the last concluding thing I want you to know, most important, is my secret to success is relentless pursuit to passion. Why I say relentless is that you have to do whatever it takes. You have to be a whatever it takes person. If you're not a whatever it takes person, you will quit. And you need to remember why you got started. Always remember, if you got into something, why are you there in the first place? That all of that starts aligning with your passion itself. If you're on that relentless pursuit towards your passion, nothing in the world can stop you. You can achieve anything you want in life. I am telling you because I actually happen to be one of the youngest people in my industry. people envy me for being able to achieve what I have achieved at this age, and people expect their financial advisor or their coach to have gray hair. Sadly, that's not the case. However, I do come with 13 years of experience, and all my life, the only thing that I've done is spent more time in finance, spent overnight learning about things other people are not willing to do, go through those books people are not willing to read, learn from those people that other people cannot even reach, is how I've been able to get to a point where I've been able to create that kind of impact, to be one of the youngest people. In fact, I believe I am one of the youngest people in the industry to do what I do at the scale of what I do, getting the recognition that I want. All in all, because of relentless pursuit to passion. So hard work, having a vision bigger than yourself, and relentless pursuit to passion is the secret sauce that you need to inculcate within yourself in such a way that you are able to achieve whatever that you seek in life, be able to fulfill your passion in life. And mind you guys, once you're on that journey, every day is a blessing. Every single day is a blessing. So I hope I've been able to, at least if not inspire a few, inspire a lot more than that, to get on that journey where you get on that path of achieving what you want in life.
Yes, so thank you so much for your inspiring words. It was a pleasure having you. This also reminds me of a quote: don't worry about success, but work towards being significant, and the success would naturally follow. On this note, we have some questions for you in the chat box. Shall I read them out for you?
Please.
Patience is the keyword for both startups and startup investors. So why is it that certain times these people lose patience very easily, knowing very well that somewhere down the line these startups would benefit?
So I would like to highlight Elon Musk here. There's a very famous video of Elon Musk where he's talking about how his mentors, who happen to be the people who went on moon, I think Edwin Aldrin is one of them, and Neil Armstrong we already know. But one of the three people who went on moon, if I'm not wrong, it is Edwin Aldrin, who was one of his mentors. Now, they later said to Elon Musk that what you're trying to do is not achievable, you should quit. And Elon Musk is crying in that interview and says, I'm never going to quit, come what may, because he believed in themselves. People will only believe in you if you believe in yourself, and look at where he has got to today. He's redefined science, he's redefined engineering in such a way that he's able to do what other people who had even gone on the moon perceived was not possible. So you need to believe in yourself in such a depth of matter that you bend reality. And you can, I'm not saying this philosophically, you can bend reality just with your thoughts, just with the conviction that you can do it. Although it has to follow through with your effort and your work towards it. But it's not only a matter of thought, it has to follow through into action. But if your thoughts are not aligned, if your mindset is not strong, then other people will not believe in you. That patience people will lose in you if you lose patience within yourself. It all starts from within, I believe.
Yes, sir. Next question. India is in a journey to reach $5 trillion economy. To achieve this, focusing on small businesses and entrepreneurship is very important. Do you think required ecosystem has been built to boost the MSMEs and startups?
So I thoroughly believe that India is better placed than any other economy in the world, at least to the level of where we are today, being one of the top 10 economies in the world. Now, amongst the top 10, I believe that we are better placed than anyone else. However, at the same time, having so much potential, India does lack a lot of smart regulations, supportive framework, and most importantly, a good structure to support from micro all the way to MSMEs. The reason why I say that is only the large companies who have those kind of structures are able to align with the government, are able to get the maximum benefit out of it. Mostly small companies, micro companies, startups do not have that kind of either team who knows that kind of information or support from the government who can actually get the maximum out of it. So I believe there is inefficiency on the end of the government. There is not enough support and framework yet. I believe there is a long way to go. even for MSMEs, let alone startups, let alone micro companies. So we've got a long way to go on there. And once this is strengthened, I thoroughly believe that this is going to ensure that the 5 trillion economy goal will be achieved maybe even before than we perceiving it to be.
Absolutely, sir. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your presence.
Likewise, thank you so much.
There is no real ending. It's just the place where you stop the story. We would like to thank our guests for sharing their inspiring journey with us.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am. We would like to thank our sponsors, our title sponsor, Learning by Traveling, our co-sponsor, Bison, Innovagen, Ovionics, and our co-living partner, Tikana.
We would also like to thank our promotional partner, IBS Messenger, our media partner, Club Newswire, our ecosystem partner, Club Trias, our cultural partner, Club Samavesh, and our theatre partner, Club Expressions. Thank you everyone for being such a patient audience. We hope you enjoyed listening to the inspiring stories of our guests as much as we enjoyed bringing them for you.
So, with this note, Diksha and I sign off for today. But we are looking forward to see you all tomorrow.